Hey everyone, happy Friday. We just got back in late last night. We thought we were going to get home on Wednesday, but some things changed in our schedule, so we had to stay an extra day. So I thought I would pop on today and just share what our experience was like. I have a whole other list of videos that I'm going to do, like what's a PET scan like, what is a biopsy like, what our treatment decision is. That'll probably come next week because I still have some appointments to have this week, things like that. So I'm going to go in detail more of like what the tests were, what it's like, that sort of thing in different videos. But today I thought I would just share what my experience was like. Hi Jenny, hi Laura. What my experience was like at CTCA and kind of what my schedule was like. And then of course, the reason we went, which was to get the prognosis and staging. So when we went, we actually stayed, they have their own hotels. So they have like, they call them guest quarters. And there's one that's in the actual hospital itself. And then there's one that we stayed in that was like half a block away. Like we actually walked every day to our appointments. So we would get up, do whatever we had to do before, whatever testing we had that particular day, and then we walk over to the hospital. So the guest quarters was like it's sort of like a little motel. You have to lease it so that and that's the way they work it, so that it's like super cheap. So it's like $25 a night, and it's really interesting. I'll kind of get to this later, but CTCA really tries hard to cover any expense you have. So for example, when we met with the financial person, she had like cleared it. So if we come back, we get up to 6 months of a free stay. So they really make an effort to like cover expenses, which we were talking about, like we could pay $25 a night or $50 a night or whatever for a hotel. Like that's nothing, right? But over time, it really adds up. And then there are so many people that they're helping tremendously by giving them access to this kind of stuff. So it was really cool. We were really impressed with that. We were not as impressed with the pillows, but the facility itself was very clean. It was very nice. It was really, really well kept. And, you have to think there's a lot of sick people coming in and out. So basically the pillows were plastic with pillow covers is basically what it was. But like I said, everything was very clean, very nice. The facilities were really, really great. So we stayed there, and then you walked over. It was like maybe a quarter of a mile. It was super close. We would walk over to the hospital itself. And the hospital itself, this is so crazy. It like hit me like 2 days in. I was like, this doesn't feel like a hospital. And I was trying to think about what it was that kind of made it not feel like a hospital. It didn't smell like a hospital, first of all, which is like really great, right? You go in, you always have that sort of like antiseptic sort of like weird. It didn't smell like that, which was really cool. And it doesn't really look like a hospital. It looks like a really big, really nice office building, sort of. And I think maybe that's because it's like carpeted everywhere. I'm not sure exactly what sets it apart, but it's very well done. It looks very, very nice. They have really cool stuff, like a huge fish tank, all these kind of things. I know it sounds stupid. You're like going for testing and cancer treatment, you're like, oh, they have a really cool fish tank. But it's, when you are specializing in something like cancer, where people are super stressed to the max, and they're coming in for all these sorts of tests that are super uncomfortable and scary, making the facility comfortable and relaxing and pretty and not smelly, you know what I mean, is like really important. And so we were really, really impressed with the facilities. Hey Amanda, hey Tina. And so I will say the facilities were absolutely excellent. I never, even when I was getting certain things done, like the biopsy and stuff like that, it just doesn't feel like a typical hospital setting. I mean, it is a hospital. It is very clean. It is very sterile, sanitary, all this kind of stuff. But it just didn't feel like you were in a hospital, which is really cool. So that's nice. Professionalism. Every single person we met, I'm trying to think if there was one that wasn't, every single person we met was very professional, very nice. It wasn't like, I told Patrick, I was like, it's not like they were like over the top, like Chick-fil-A nice, you know what I mean? But they were very professional and very nice. Everyone seemed happy to be there, happy to work there. They all had different stories. Like the very first person that we met that sort of like checked us in, so to speak, and took us up to our first place, she had cancer. I can't remember how many years ago. It was like years and years and years and years ago, like a long time ago. And ended up working there, and they treated her cancer and ended up working there. We heard so many stories about, why people were coming there. And it was so funny too, in terms of like, it was not asked for. We weren't seeking for people to build CTCA up, or we weren't looking for referrals. I mean, we were already there. But people just would come up and be like, oh my gosh, this is your first day. You couldn't have picked a better place. These people are so amazing. The doctors are great. These are the kind of doctors. Well, let me back up for a second. So I'm in the stem cell unit. So there's stem cell doctors and hematologists, oncologists. There's like 3 main doctors in the stem cell unit. And everyone's like, these are the best doctors. These are the doctors that other doctors come and seek advice from, so it was really cool because we kept getting this really positive feedback, and we were sitting in the waiting room with other patients, and of course, first we're kind of like, this is weird because I feel so healthy and I'm sitting here next to like legitimately sick people. It just is weird to be in that environment. And but they were all so nice, and then we started hearing these stories, and it was so funny because one of the doctors came in, and one of the people in the waiting room was like, that doctor saved my life. And the doctor goes, God saves lives. I just get paid. Or I take your money or something like that. It was really funny. But everyone just like really was speaking highly of their experience there. They wanted to share their stories with us. They wanted to talk about how great the doctors are. Actually, what was so ironic is when we were sitting in the waiting room the first day, the other couple that ended up talking to us was also from Ohio, like maybe 30-40 minutes away, and he'd been going there for several years and travels, and was telling us about his experience driving. He chose to drive, not fly, so we were asking him some questions about that. So overall, the staff, super professional. One of the things that was incredibly nice was, a lot of times when you have like in Kettering Health Network or whatever, like you have your My Chart online. So they have the same thing. It's My CTCA. And so you basically have your medical chart, anything that they do. It was crazy. They would update it like, it's updated like that. Like you go back to your room and you check your My CTCA, and like, the nurse navigator put your stats up while you were in the appointment with the doctor, so like your weight and your BMI, whatever. So that was nice because before I even met with the doctor to review my tests, I had actually seen the results of most of my tests. So that's why you guys are able to see me post, hey, there was only 1 lump on my PET scan, before I actually met with the doctor to officially tell me that, because I was able to pull up my imaging reports and see what they said, which was great. So professionalism was great. The chart updates and the access to your records, awesome. So food, this is really interesting. So CTCA is one of the only cancer treatment center hospitals that focuses on cancer that I know of that also allows for naturopaths, nutritionists, and a little bit more of an integrated approach. Now, what's so funny is it's not, the level that I would take it to, you know what I mean? But compared to conventional, the fact that you even have access to a nutritionist, access to a naturopath, and they even talk about that is huge. It's a huge step in the right direction. But for someone like me who's like coming from, I'm juicing, I'm doing salads, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And my history, like we would go and we were like looking in the cafeteria and we were like, there's not enough stuff here for us to eat. And then it's located in Zion, Illinois, which is like kind of podunky, like there's not a lot there. And so if we wanted to find something, we really had to drive to get it. So on our way in, we stopped at a Whole Foods, we stocked up our fridge, then we realized that we were going to have to be bumped back a day, and so, we ate out a little bit, but we were able to make it happen. We had to drive anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to really find like quality, organic, different, foods that we wanted to eat and do something a little different, but it was worth it. And then in the cafeteria, we did discover they do have juices and smoothies. So if you wanted to order that and have it like fresh pressed juice, you could do that there. So they're trying to accommodate, that as well. So the food, I would say, was not like awesome, and like the location was not awesome, but because we were so prepared and we were willing to drive, we made it happen. So a couple things in terms of location. Like I said, it's a really small town, so there's not a lot to do. So someone like me who only has to have treatment for like a day may be able to like drive in and drive home. That's great, right? It's not a big deal. But for someone like we were there, we met this one lady. She has to do treatments over like 3-4 days at a time and come back like every 3 weeks or something. Like it's a very extended process for her. And so that would be hard because you have to stay there and then you have to travel home and there's not a lot to do in the area. She's probably an inpatient at that point. So that's just a lot of different scenarios for different people that have different cancers and different prognoses. So what my schedule was when I got there, we arrived on Sunday. We checked into the guest accommodations and everything. We did decide to get a rental car, which was we were really glad because, like I said, we ended up driving quite a distance to get some food that we wanted and just to try different things. There was like the Jelly Belly factory in Wisconsin, so we went, took a little tour at the Jelly Belly factory. I think it was actually a warehouse, not a factory, but anyway. So Monday basically was real chill. We didn't have anything until noon. We met with the team basically that would be like our contact people, and we met with the doctor. So I met with the doctor that was going to review my tests and everything. He did my intake and asked me a ton of questions. And so a couple things. We were really glad that, Patrick is very much like, I don't want people talking down to you, all these kinds of different things. And so it was so funny because I think that first day, like, we weren't quite prepared yet, right? And the rest of the week, we had our notebook out, and we took notes, and we asked questions, and we were prepared. But this day, I was just listening, because I didn't really know what to expect. And Patrick's face, it was so funny, because he was really listening, but we were both really tired, too. And he was super sick the first, day or so that we were there. So he was really tired and really sick, and he was trying so hard to focus. He looked so angry, you guys. It was the funniest thing. So the doctor comes in, and Patrick is listening to everything he says, and he just looks like, he looked so intense. It was hilarious. I was looking at him like he looks so angry. I should have said something. But anyway, so the doctor comes in and asks me a bunch of questions. Basically, they want to eliminate, that I'm not having any symptoms. So there's something called type A or B. So if you're stage 1A or 1B, that letter A or B, A is basically asymptomatic. B is B symptoms, which would be weight loss and night sweats and all these kinds of things I'm not having. So he wanted to ask me a lot about that, but then I was able to ask him my questions. I was able to request an additional blood test, all these different things. And he was like, that's a great question. Let me answer this. And so he's very communicative, very nice. And then I went in for a physical exam. So after our verbal meeting, I went in for a physical exam, and it was funny because so most of you know that the Wednesday prior, I had gone in for a routine OBGYN appointment. She found a lump in both breasts and ordered, especially since I already had a cancer diagnosis, she was like, we definitely want to get this checked out. I'm going to order an ultrasound mammogram. So I had called CTCA and said, hey, this is what's going on. Maybe we can do it all at the same time, which again is why we were there, because everything that they did in the past 3-4 days would have taken us 2 weeks to a month to get done here, no joke. So I called them ahead and I was like, hey, maybe we can add these. So it was funny because when I went into my physical exam, he was checking to feel lymph nodes, and he got to the one that is big, and he was like, I give you credit because it's not easy to feel. So basically he's saying, unless I do this and it pops out and you can see it, it is difficult to see and feel. So that's good. And then he was like, I'm not gonna physically examine your breast because you're gonna get all that done tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, I'll tell you about that in a second. They were totally mutilated. But so we did the physical exam, and then basically he ordered a lot of blood work, And he ordered the mammogram, the ultrasound, everything. We had that scheduled, and then that was it. So the first day was not a lot. I met the doctors, I got my blood work, and then we relaxed. We did some other stuff, and after that, we were really good about taking notes. So, and then we discovered the MyChart thing. I was able to see my blood work, all this kind of stuff. So Tuesday was like my big day in terms of all the tests. It was a full, long day. I met a lot of people. Again, what's different about CTCA is that you have access to things like a chaplain, a counselor, a naturopath, a nutritionist, all these different people, and you can schedule appointments with them at any time. They can guide you in different ways throughout the process if you choose to get treatment at CTCA, whether you're traveling there or staying there or whatever. So it's just really nice. So they want you to meet all these individual people that you could potentially be connected with in the future. So that was really cool. But Tuesday, I had to get my PET scan, which was, the main priority in terms of why we were there was to get the staging. And so we did the PET scan. And then after the PET scan, which was like oh my gosh, you had to be in a room for like 45 minutes you couldn't play on your phone, you couldn't do anything. They wanted you to basically nap. It was crazy. So I got the PET scan. After the PET scan, I got the mammogram. After the mammogram, I got the ultrasound. What was it that she said? The ultrasound lady was so funny. She was really, really nice. Well, all of them were really nice. But she was funny. She said something about handling my boobs. And I was like, oh, yeah, they've already been. Because if any of you have gotten a mammogram, it's crazy. And I'll go into each of the tests later. But so I got a PET scan, I got a mammogram, then I got an ultrasound. And then basically because of the ultrasound, it was funny. She was like, you have like tons of cysts in your breast. So after the ultrasound, there was one lump in that area. There was still that one lump that was a little bit of a concern. And so they did order a biopsy for the next day. So then Wednesday comes along. I had gotten that full long day of testing the day before. Wednesday comes along. I have a breast biopsy and another mammogram. So they did the mammogram after the biopsy to check something. So, all right. So I did the biopsy on Wednesday, and then because we had the biopsy added to our schedule, that bumped our doctor's appointment to Thursday, and then Thursday we met with the doc. So Thursday, we still had not had, and I still don't have the results of my biopsy, but while he was doing it, he's basically, I think this is fine. So Thursday we met with the doctor because he needed to review all of those tests that I had and come up with the staging and the plan and all of that. So that's kind of where we are. So this is what he said. I am stage 1A non-bulky. So what that means is stage 1, obviously, there's 4 stages. 1 is the best. A is also the best. You don't want B because that means you have symptoms. So 1A, so far the best. Bulky versus non-bulky. So if your tumor is over 10 centimeters, it's considered bulky. Mine's under 10. It's about 5 or 6. So it's considered non-bulky. So stage 1A non-bulky is literally best case scenario if you have a diagnosis, like that's the one you want. So that's good news, right? So then he goes into the treatment recommendations. And he said basically that I had 2 choices, and he lined them out and talked about the studies that were associated with them and, walked me through what my options were. So option number 1 is that you get 2 rounds of chemotherapy. Now, a round of chemotherapy is actually 2 treatments, so 2 rounds would be 4 treatments. So option number 1 is that you would have 2 rounds of chemotherapy followed by basically, I don't know how to put this medically correctly, but like low dose radiation. I can't remember the units that they use, but it's a low unit for a certain period of time. With a PET scan after the 2 rounds of chemotherapy. So the PET scan again would see did the chemo do its job, and then you'd follow it up by a little bit of radiation. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 would be to do 3 rounds of chemotherapy, which is 6 sessions of chemotherapy, and then do a PET scan, make sure it's gone, and then no radiation. So there's a lot to think about there, but If you can avoid radiation, you want to avoid radiation. I mean, if you could avoid chemo, you want to avoid chemo too. But if you can avoid radiation, it's a good thing. So 3 rounds is actually half of what the typical Hodgkin's treatment dose is. So that's already low. So again, if you can call it good news, that's good news. So 3 rounds, 2 sessions each. So basically that means that I would be getting chemotherapy every 2 weeks for 3 months. That's basically what it boils down to. Every 2 weeks for 3 months. It's a 4 to 8 hour treatment. You have to get a shot the next day. They put you on a ton of other prescription drugs, which is crazy to me. I'm still wrapping my head around this, and I still have the appointment with my local oncologist on Tuesday and a lot of stuff to think about. This is very, again, I'll do another video. I'm not going to make this one too long. I'll do another video about making treatment decisions, natural, alternative, combo. There's a lot to think about for someone that's very like, I don't want to be on prescriptions. I don't want, they put you on a ton of stuff, and it's very little, there's not much that you would really want to change about it if you go that route, because it's all for very specific reasons, obviously. So there's not a lot that you could do if you choose to go that. You can't really like taper down on the drugs. So, for example, one of them is an antiviral, but you're on it for a year. You're probably going to be on some pretty heavy anti-nausea stuff, a lot of things like that. But it ends up being quite a long list, which is a little crazy for me. So the good news, because let's focus on that. The good news is that it's literally the best prognosis possible. I'm young, I'm healthy, stage 1A, non-bulky. That's literally the best case scenario. If you have cancer, that's the one you want. Also, the typical treatment, because of that, because of all of that, the staging and the prognosis and my age and my health and stage 1A, not B, blah, 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 the treatment time is literally cut in half, and there's the potential for no radiation. So there's a lot of really positive things in there. There's still a lot of really scary things in there. You have to do things like get a port put in, which is a surgical procedure. The other option, this is super weird, so the other option would be a PICC line, but that like literally freaks me out, because they would, this is where I get weird. I don't like a lot of needle stuff anyways. I would physically rather have them stick something in me and leave it there for the duration of this, and then just like use it, than I would to get an IV with something like that physically goes up my arm, like something like a catheter going up my vein and then pulling out every time, like every single time I got treatment. Like that would freak me out, and I'm already gonna have so much anxiety about this entire process if I do it, that it's like, let's just keep it as simple as possible, okay? You like put something in, you leave it alone, you don't have to poke me anymore, all right? I got a lot of poking. I got a lot of manhandling this week. So there's a lot of things that you still have to think about. You have to get things like that done. You have to schedule everything very strategically and kind of figure out like when you're going to be tired and when you're not, and like what days you can work and what days you can schedule things and what days you can't. So there's a lot for me to still think about. There's a lot of good news, but it's still cancer. It's still chemotherapy. There's nothing really positive about that situation. Basically I have an appointment today with a fertility specialist, because one of the pretty significant side effects with chemotherapy is that you could lose your fertility ability completely. It can damage your ovaries, and there goes your chances of having kids. So I have to talk to her today about like what does it entail, what's that process look like. The doctor at CTCA was like, hey, I'm really glad you have that appointment already set up. I would have told you to do that. So go home, get that done. That's probably about a month of a process, and then we'll start treatment if that's what you decide to do. If you decide to work with us, whatever. So the fertility appointment is today, so I just have a lot of questions. I don't know that I'm going to go through with that. I'm still thinking about it, you guys. It's a lot to think about. We were kind of on the fence about having kids anyways, and that could potentially be like a process, an uncomfortable process before another uncomfortable process. So I really have to think about this. And then I have an appointment finally with my local oncologist on Tuesday. So I'm really curious to see if her reaction to the test results, like if her treatment plan is exactly the same, if it's different, if like, does she go with the same bare minimum? Is she like, normal treatment? Like, what is her perspective? I'm curious to see, because that will really help us in making our decision as well. Who do we want to work with? Obviously, if it's the exact same approach, being here would be way better. I love sleeping in my bed. Less travel equals less stress. If I could have a relationship with a doctor here, that'd be great. All sorts of different things. Now, obviously, I am also, if I go the conventional route, pursuing a lot of alternative integrative therapies as well. And these are therapies that are known to not only improve the efficacy of the chemotherapy itself, but also lower your side effects and help you feel better through the process so that you can function as a normal human being. So all good things. And again, I don't want to make this video too long, so those are a bunch of other videos that I'll do throughout the process. I'll explain all the individual therapies, my treatment plan decisions, who I'm working with, how I built my team, who my team is, when we get to those points. So today I have the fertility specialist, Tuesday I have the local oncologist, and that's kind of where we're at. Thanks for following my journey, guys, and I hope you have a great weekend.